Hey DC families, and welcome to this month's Mental Health Minute. Last month I started a mini-series on the media's effect on your students' mental health. This month our focus is going to be on violence in media. For the majority of my statistics I'll be using the following book, Game On: Sensible Answers About Video Games and Media Violence. This has been a great resource for me as a parent so far, and it is written by top researchers right here at our very own Iowa State University. Now stick with me. If you're like my husband, you're probably thinking, I played video games all the time growing up and I'm not aggressive. Listen, my mom worked nights. I grew up watching Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Steven Seagal with my dad. And now I'm here teaching your kids how to be nice to each other. I get it. However, the numbers and the science don't lie. There are more than 1,000 studies done over a period of 60 years on violent media. So here's the skinny on violent media and how it affects your kids. Studies show that exposure to media violence increases one's chances for becoming aggressive. Now, aggression does not equal violence. Aggression can be violence, but it can also look like the following: insults, shoving, bullying, spreading rumors, and even undermining someone's goals and relationships. So aggression takes many forms, and violent media can increase the likelihood of aggression being shown. They can also increase the chances of risk-taking behavior. For example, if you play a game that shows a lot of reckless driving, you're more likely to drive recklessly in real life. Studies show there are short-term and long-term effects to media violence. One study showed that children playing a cartoon violent video game with no blood or gore for 20 minutes increased their attempts to harm another child by 47%. Other studies show that long-term exposure can actually change the way we think, feel, and behave. Media can increase a child's likelihood of getting into a fight at school from 28 to 50%. Another study on elementary school-aged boys who watched a lot of violent television were looked at again 15 years ago, and these boys were 3 times more likely to be convicted of a crime than those who watched fewer violent TV shows. Last but not least, ADHD. Diagnoses of ADHD have increased in the last 2 decades to the point where 1 in 10 children are diagnosed with ADHD. Numerous studies have been done and have found that media has been linked to attention problems, impulsiveness, and lack of self-control. So what can we as parents do? The book says the number one thing you can do is limit your child's exposure to violent media while discussing the reasons for these limitations. Also, move screen devices from private spaces like bedrooms to public spaces so it's easier to monitor what they're watching and playing. Watch and play violent media before you allow your kids to watch and play it. Most importantly, ask your child questions and encourage them to think critically about the content. Be sure to ask questions about if the violence is appropriate or effective in the situation shown in the media. I know that's a lot of information thrown at you in a short amount of time, but I'm going to leave you with one last quote from the book. Media violence may just be a drop in the proverbial bucket, but every drop matters when we're talking about 325 million buckets in the United States, into which media violence drips every day. Let's keep our kids' minds healthy, and see you next month.